I had some issues with the audio on my previous live attempt. So hopefully the audio is sorted out for this attempt. So today I wanted to talk about my recent shoot and a little bit about how I think when I choose my edits. So I don't really have a coherent script to run through this time. So I just take it from on the basis from starting from talking about my shoot. So yeah, you can see here on the top part of the screen, you can see Lightroom. And Lightroom is a software which you can use to do some light editing, but it's mainly used to do, I use it at least for selecting, importing and storing and creating a backup of your photos. You can also do some, not really lightweight, you can do a lot of editing in Lightroom, but I primarily use Photoshop for my editing. So what you see on the screen here is from Sunday's shoot with Hanna. We did a shoot with 6 different outfits. I have done selection. I think it's something like 60 or 70 photos, which are my sort of pick, my favorites from, I think we shot something like 600 or something photos. As I said earlier, I prefer to shoot a lot of photos because it's a part of the creation process to take many photos, and even of one particular pose. I tend to take quite a lot of photos. There is a technical reason. There could be issues with the focusing. So when I'm shooting several photos of the same pose, I tend to take a few more than needed so that I'm certain that my focus is in the right place. Also, when I shoot a lot of photos on the same pose, is I walk to the sides. I maybe bend down a little bit or go up a little bit, and that's to change the angle of the photograph. Because sometimes just maybe walking one step to the side, and if the model holds the pose and stares in the direction, looks in the direction that he or she is started looking at, you may see something new. You may see some new kind of a new composition which you didn't see previously. So the selection I have here then is my selection. In addition to this selection, a little bit later I will get the model's pick, the one she thought looks good. And I will work primarily with actually hers, because I'm not there yet that I can with 100% certainty say that my selection is the best one. Because as a photographer, you often look at your results in often technical terms. It's in focus, it's a good crop, and the light is good. As far as technical things, if you have those ticked off, I can say that, or you can say that the photo is good. It can be used to make another selection later on. So when I look at the photos for the first time, I tend to look at, first of all, that's not true actually. When I first look through my photos, I pick the ones that are striking, that sort of I see at once it's something that I can work with. And later on, when the model or those I work with send me their selections, I can go through their selection and see something that I think is okay, but not like blow my mind. But later on, when I finished editing those pictures and put them on social media, often they are those photos are the most popular ones. So therefore, I'm not completely certain, or I'm not at all able to say alone that my selections are the best ones. But I know that some photos, for me, that's really striking. I know those photos people will like, at least the people who like what I like, because you can't shoot and expect 100% everybody likes your photos. That's not something you can expect. It's a good thing, actually, because then you don't have to, because that's a bad thing. It's a good thing you don't have to think about the 100%, because that's impossible. But you shouldn't really also give much thought to what the people want, what your audience want. You should shoot what you want to shoot. And that's why I don't do clients much anymore, because I think it's actually boring, and it's a lot of work. So I'm so lucky that I have a work that gives me money to buy expensive photo equipment, and therefore when I'm shooting what I want, what I think is interesting, what I think can give me something. Because photography is also, apart from being a creative process where you sort of can make something new that hasn't been made before, it's also a process where your level of competence and your level of security is very high, meaning that when you're in the studio or out shooting in the nature or doing what you think is fun, it's an activity that you can certainly say that give you something in terms of almost a meditative process. You sort of it's a safe space, to put it in very short terms. So when you're doing photography, I think it's important that you pick the ones, you do the shoots you want to do, and not think so much about what the others think. The good thing about having internet today is that 30 years ago, when you maybe if I did something similar 30 years ago, I wouldn't probably have a lot of people looking at my photos. Maybe it would be people in the local photo club, or friends or family. And I know that the kind of photos I shoot, it's not really the ones that sell. People don't buy pictures like this to hang on their wall at home. I understand that they want something nature photo, or something, a pretty picture that is both pretty and neutral, because you don't want to hang up a big controversial photo in your living room. That's like having your TV turned on to a war movie all the time, for instance. So I certainly can see that in terms of reaching clients. But I leave those kind of pictures to those who like to take those kind of pictures. And unfortunately, it's not much of a sale to talk about when you're talking about my pictures. But the good thing about internet is that you have a much larger audience than like for 30 years ago. Not that I shot a lot 30 years ago. I was not that old enough to do photography, I think. But if you are a little bit active and use Instagram and Facebook to promote your photos, also to send your photos into different agencies and photography magazines, you will see your work sometime or later being published. Unfortunately, the one magazine that I have my photos published in, I haven't heard from them in a while. They have been radio silence on their page for a long time now. But I have had maybe 5 or 6 features. A feature is when your photo is featured on their homepage or in their printed magazine. And I have several of those in that particular magazine. That magazine is called Dark Beauty Magazine. The first time I did a feature, it was kind of wild. First, when I got the mail that my photo was selected for a feature, it was really a very good feeling, because you felt that the work I did and what Maria did, she's the model but also my collaborator on a lot of the photos, it gave me a sense of finally someone who can see the work that we are doing, and a very sort of feeling of elation. And then a couple of months later, excitement mounts, because we would have our picture feature on Dark Beauty Magazine, and this is a fairly big social media presence. I think they had on Instagram they have like almost 500,000 followers, and on Facebook they have 1.2 million followers. So when you are featured on Dark Beauty Magazine, you're kind of reaching a lot of people, a lot more people than you would do otherwise on your private Instagram or Facebook page. So what was funny was that I think we had something like 7,000 likes on that particular photo, the first photo I had featured. And that was a tremendous feeling of finally sort of appreciation of what you are doing, and that you are going in the right direction. So I think it's important that even if, as a photographer, if you feel that you're not getting anywhere and maybe just making photos for yourself, and you don't really, when you show your photos, people go like, oh, yeah, that's good. What kind of camera are you using? And I can understand that, because most people really don't have any deep knowledge of what it takes to be a photographer. So when you sort of get this kind of affirmation from a magazine or any sort of publisher, you will get this feeling of finally someone who you know that you're doing something right. You know that you're doing something that someone in the world likes. And so in total, I think we had like for all the features we had on Dark Beauty Magazine, I think in total like 12 or 13,000 likes or something, and not a lot of followers, but a lot of likes, a lot of comments, good comments also. So I think it's important then to not be afraid to send your photos to magazines or on Facebook or Instagram, and ask for a feature. And then you will, if you're doing a good enough work, maybe they will ask you, maybe you can do one more, and before you know it, you have a lot of followers, and you get maybe a client, and you can travel and do your kind of thing. But for me at the moment, I'm sort of still in the phase where I'm trying to land on some sort of expression in a way. I think I have some sort of expression, but I'm trying out different things, and I think it's important to try out different things. Not only to shoot the one and only light setup in the photo studio, but also try to do out different like location photography, shooting in nature, shooting in an office building, maybe try something cinematic. So I think that's what I'm doing right now. I'm trying out a lot of things and having fun. That's the main thing, and having this kind of sense of artistic freedom and feeling a sort of affirmation from the likes I get from when I post my pictures on Facebook or Instagram. So that was a long story about the reason why I do photography. I was supposed to be talking about the shoot I had on this Sunday. So let's get down to, let's talk about that. So the picture you're seeing there is of Hanna. She's a model I have featured previously on my live streams, and we were in the studio last Sunday, and I think we did 6 different outfits. She had this time she had done makeup more fitting for a studio photography, because when you're shooting in a studio, it's important that the makeup is more than day-to-day use. I don't have much knowledge about makeup, but that's a basic tip that you tell the models that they either put on or put on a more dramatic or pronounced makeup than they usually would do. Tell them like they should put on makeup as they're going to a party, and also to tell them to bring with them the makeup so they can put on the makeup themselves and add more as time goes on in the studio. So Hanna did wonderful work on the makeup. It was really striking, and I think it sort of really enhanced both her facial features, but also the mood, because I told her that I wanted to have a sort of glamorous setting. So 6 different outfits. I will try now to give a short walkthrough. So this photo in particular is one that I worked a lot with, because this is actually of her. The original photo looks like this. You can see she is holding her hand up on the camera right side, and she's pushing with her hand towards the top of her head, and that's pushing the hair upwards and making it more voluminous. I like that, but the hand was in there, so I had to do some editing where I did a mask. I masked out the background and the hand, then inserted a gray background. I used a small gradient on the background, so it was not completely the same gray color. So you see it a little bit lighter on the lower left side, and it gets darker on the upper right side. Then I had to do a little bit of editing on, you see on her left side, you see the hair sort of bulging out there. And I looked at this photo for a long time, and I sort of, should I leave it as it is or should I remove it? And I finally thought, okay, I should remove it. And again, I masked out the hair, and then did remove the hair. But then after I remove the hair, you will clearly see sort of where you cut out the hair. So it's a big problem. How do I solve that? Well, I use one more layer in Photoshop, and in this layer I use a small brush. I think it was 3 in size, and I paint, and I on the brush I use this kind of, you can select how smoothness of the movement. When you make a line in Photoshop, you can adjust the smoothness. So if you're shaking with your hand or mouse, or your favorite editing tool, there will always be like a jittery movement when you sort of move the mouse or the pen. So with smoothness enabled, and to a certain degree, I think it was like 50 or 60%, it retains sort of a nice curve. And this curve is looks a little bit like hair sort of moves in a smooth curve. But when I have put on some hair on her, you can clearly see it's made with a brush. So then I add some noise to the brush strokes, so that it sort of looks a little bit more like hair, because hair is not one color, it's like different color according to, maybe it's another hair on top which make it more darker, maybe it's highlights, etc, etc. So by adding just a simple noise layer on it, I can make it a little bit more crispy, more texture in it. And then I had sort of, okay, it looks good, but it looks too perfect. Why is that? Because it's in focus. So what I did finally after, was that I added a Gaussian blur on this brush stroke. So it sort of moved the hair a little bit behind. So it's a little bit out of focus. And you probably, those who know how to edit, you probably see where I did the edit, but yeah, I could probably have done something more, like found another photo and maybe taken some of the taken a hair from a different picture and pasted and copied and pasted into the photo and did some further adjustment to make it sort of on top of this photo. But I had spent so much time on this particular photo, and I thought to myself that I'm happy with it as this is. A couple of years ago, 2 years ago, a friend of mine sent me a link to a YouTube video about a YouTube creator. And this YouTube creator talked about his philosophy in regards to making stuff and learning stuff. And he had this 80% rule. And that is when you sort of you should stop at a certain point when you're working on something, because when you're working on something creatively and you sort of do this because you want to be better at what you're doing. So you should stop about 80%, because you could of course go to 90%. You think you're perfect, or 100%, but because you'll never. The point is, you will never reach 100%. Nobody does that. There is also always something wrong with a picture that seems 100% perfect. It's always something maybe that could have been changed. But the point is anyway that for you as a creator, I think it's important that at a certain point when you're working on a particular project, you should stop and sort of, okay, this is what I can do now. I'm finished. Let's do the next one. So when you do the next one, maybe you're at 81%. You see? So, and the time after that, maybe 82%. So sort of you progressively get better, but you must not sort of stop at, or just work on one thing and try to make it 100%, because that's impossible. Because people who don't know photography in particular, and maybe they have a different view of what is perfect. So they may see a picture you are sort of, it's okay. And they will say, oh, it's fantastic. I really like this. But you know sort of what's wrong with it. And but if you sort of stop at 80% and instead try to work on the next one and learn more and use what you have learned to do it better next time, you're in a better position to develop your own skills. So this is what I thought when I got to this point where I did all this editing, and I think I spent usually on a photo I spent like 30 or 45 minutes, depending on how complicated the original photo is. If I have to remove a lot of things or adjust skin tones, etc. But this one I spent a lot of time using these different techniques to first remove the hand and then to fix the hair. So I stopped and I put it out and people liked it, so I'm happy. I can show you one photo that I have been working on, which was technical thing I also did here. By technical I mean like I do a lot more editing work in Photoshop before I start the retouching. This is the original photo, and this is a very great pose of Hanna. She's standing in profile, she's wearing a summer dress, nice colors, but then we move down to her feet, and you can see that I haven't been paying attention when I'm looking through the viewfinder in the photo in the camera. So I didn't notice that her lower part of her right shoe is covered by this floor softbox. So what I did was, first I talked with Anna. She liked this photo. Yes, she liked this photo. So I found another photo, maybe I think it was 5 photos before this one, where she's standing more or less in the same position, and then just copied that part of the picture top on this photo, and then I did a bit of editing and ended up with this one. So this here I have recreated the shoe so that you can see the whole shoe. So this is much better starting point than from here, because if I didn't know how to put on the extra part of the shoe, I may have to do a crop where I cropped below her skirt, her summer dress. But I really like the full figure shot here, so I'm happy that I made it possible. That so this is sort of the starting point. I haven't really started on the retouching, and it's a bit messy floor and stuff like that. So I have to do some decisions if I should keep the you see the scratches, and there is some dust and dirt. So I try to keep a bit dirt and dust and scrapes on the background, because otherwise it looks like it's impossible clean. So yeah, so that's probably the next one I'm doing. And then we did where she's standing with the back towards the camera, and she's taking the top off, and she's holding her hands around herself. And this one was the original photo. I can see here at the bottom there's a little bit of her dress sticking out there, but I really like this crop. So I did a little bit of Photoshop editing where I did a selection, and then I sort of copied I did a copy of the skin, sort of this small part of the lower part of her back, so it was complete. And then it was a matter of choosing, because color is, I don't think, in terms of mood, you have to change. Sometimes color is good for certain types of photos, but black and white is, especially in conveying moods, black and white is good, because colors sometimes complicate your message. So I did some editing on slight retouching on the skin, and ended up with this one, which is the final composition and framing. And I sort of didn't quite in the beginning know if it should be like a tight crop like this, but I didn't like it, because it was too little room, little air on her side. So I ended up using this particular frame. I also tried to choose framing so that it's not cropped when I publish on Instagram. Maybe it's a cardinal sin, I don't know, but I try to do that because sometimes when the models publish the photos on Instagram, they don't know how to publish the photo properly sometimes. It doesn't happen much, but sometimes I can see the photo being published, and you see the top half on the lower part of the photo is cropped away, because Instagram is very strict in terms of what kind of composition proportions you're supposed to have. Yeah, so this was a photo I really liked. Very good details. I used this 105 Sigma lens I bought half a year ago. It's super sharp, and that means that when you're working with, it's not really like if you have a sharp lens, it's not important to have like sharpest skin. That's actually an opposite effect. You want to have soft skin usually. But in terms of details like hair and the finer details, it's very good to have a sharp lens, because then I don't have to do much editing on the hair, because it sort of pops out sharp by itself. So I really like how the hair came out here. Really good details, I think. So, so I haven't had time much to look at the photos, but this is my selection so far. In addition, there will be selections from Hanna. She will also pick a few photos that she likes, and I will primarily work with those actually, because I don't trust myself in terms of picking the picking a good photo from my selection, because as a photographer, when the photographer, me, picks the photos, I tend to first of all look at, not really first of all, but technical things like, is it in focus, is it the composition, do I have enough room on the sides or below or up, and is the light good? So I tend to look at those things. But of course, I also I trust myself that I know when I see something that really blows my mind, I know that photo will be, it's a good photo. But when it comes to like choosing between 600 photos, I summon the help of the model and the people who attended the shoot. So I share all my photos with the model, and also if I use a makeup artist or a stylist, I give them access to a Google Disk folder, and in this Google Disk folder I upload in JPEG the raw file, so that the people can who work with me can have a look at the photos. So I sort of know that maybe there's a photo that I didn't really think a lot about, but when I work with it, I see really this is a good photo. Yeah. So this was long live test stream. I don't know if anyone was watching, but hope the audio was okay this time. And I think I'll stop now and wish you all a good evening. And let me see now if I can quit and then stop the stream instead of stopping the stream and then stop talking. Okay, let me see. Yeah. Okay.